Hi everyone, hello internet, welcome to Dance Talk. I'm Søren, my artist name is DJ Estrella. I am a DJ, I produce, I'm semi-skilled producer. Beside me today I have a really skilled producer and DJ. It's Morten, or his artist name is Modah. So this is a talk show, so meaning that we're gonna talk about dance music. That's why it's called Dance Talk. And the deal is that we don't mix as DJs normally do. We speak about the music that we love and try to give it some character, a bit of history, and some genre intro, and just give it some personality, because we are for hours long on the dance floor and we dance and dance and dance and dance, but we never really know what's playing basically. So that's the idea here. We're trying to give you an input on what to listen to, and to just give the music some personality and character. Okay, with that said, welcome Morten.
Thank you.
Modah, thanks for coming. Do you recognize the shirt that I'm wearing?
Yes.
So what's up with this shirt?
That's a shirt we made from. I used to run a record label called Turtleneck. Until a couple of years ago, where we had we had 6 vinyl releases and a cassette, and then we had a lot of digital releases, and I think that's from the 5th release we made this logo and made like 100 of those t-shirts.
I really like it, and thanks for giving it to me. So for free. I didn't buy it. Morten, I remember back when before Copenhagen had a big club scene. I met you at et andet sted, that's in Valby. It was run by the now owners of Den Anden Side, and previously ved siden af. And I remember those label nights that you had with Turtleneck Records. Is it Turtleneck Records?
Yeah.
And you released 6 EPs on this?
Yeah,
starring local people such as?
Mainly locals, and then we had Adon, which is like a super big techno DJ today, but it was actually his first vinyl release ever, was on our label, which is super weird now because he's playing like everywhere on big festivals and on Berghain and stuff like that. But yeah, it was mainly like, actually it was because when we started to make music that we actually thought like, okay, we want to release this is good enough. Then you start to like think about, but then we're gonna send some demos out. And especially in the techno scene, I think, I don't know if it's that much anymore, because I don't send out demos anymore, but I definitely think that there was this thing that every label had kind of its own sound, and it was very much like the same maybe the main artist who was just the producer who owned the label, and then maybe 2 or 3 of his very good friends, or he or she's good friends. So it was like super hard to actually like send something to like somebody you never met before, and there wasn't really any Danish labels at the time. So yeah, I think me and my partner Stefan Riesenfeldt, we met this guy called Rasmus, who had already started Turtleneck, but really needed like, he wasn't really into the techno scene that much, like personally, but just needed like this kind of influx of ideas. And we had like hundreds of tracks where he was like, we're gonna release all of it, and that's obviously impossible to do. So we ended up doing those 6 records, and then a lot of digital releases, and then at some point the label just like we parted ways. Like me and Stefan are still making music together, but we parted ways with Rasmus, and now me and Stefan, like for a very long time, have had a plan of making a new label called Evasion, which we still haven't released the first release from, even though we had the masters for like, I don't know, many months now, ready to go. But hopefully it's gonna be soon.
And one thing you didn't mention before when I asked you about Turtleneck is that you also released on that label local people such as Controls and Neri J as well, if anybody knows who they are. So you started off really early, and this is some 7 years ago, I guess. And before that, there was Culture Box and KB18 represent. And there was really no other place to go at that time. There was a place called Dunkel before that. But it ended still where I first...
we met each other the first time.
Exactly, and where I also went to the Turtle Night label nights was at it ended still. So Morten, you and I met each other properly some half a year ago, and me and Morten has this thing that I find old music and Morten finds new music, and we show it to each other, and we really like that. So anyway, Morten, we don't have much time, and we have to listen to some music also. So let's start with the first piece of music that you bought. Can you?
I can find it.
So he didn't prepare beforehand. I just asked him to bring some records, and he has to choose on the spot what to play, and then give us a bit of history about that track, the genre, the artist, and so on, and some perspective to it. So Morten, what is that? The dubstep?
Yeah, actually, I decided the first record I was gonna play was dubstep, and that was.
So how do you go from dubstep to techno?
Yeah. That's the story I'm gonna get into now, because for me, and I think for many people, it started that there wasn't really much there was definitely techno parties and electronic music playing everywhere, but when I started listening to electronic music when I was 16. It was mainly bass music, drum and bass and dubstep, and I was very much into making this music all of a sudden. I was playing guitar only before and was playing in 7 bands and was super stressed out.
And I know that you know the solo to Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits by heart.
Yeah, and a lot of guitar solos. Yeah,
that's some time ago.
Yeah. It was my dad. He told me if you can do this. When I've been playing guitar for maybe half a year, he was like, if you can play this song, then I'm gonna be very proud of you. And I went up to my room, and it took me 2 hours, and then I was like, come up, you can hear it now, and then I could play the song.
Swing.
And that was kind of my I always get very much into something. Maybe it was before music, it was video games, but then when I was 16, I was in 7 bands, and I had to practice all the time. And then I met this guy called Alex, who's also known as Repro, or part of Future. And he showed me this thing called dubstep and all this electronic music, where you didn't need anybody else to make music. You could just do it yourself. And I was very much into that at the time. So I bought some dubstep records by somebody called Cryptic Minds, which is very much at that time, it was something called dungeon dubstep. We called it that at that time. We called it dungeon dubstep.
Why?
But because it has normal dubstep is very much reggae, or this is before Skrillex, but either reggae or a bit more clean, where all of this dungeon dubstep is very mechanical and sounds like a factory. And I think it's a very nice place to start, both because this record is one of Cryptic Minds' first records that really had that sound. I think it's called The Weeping or something.
When is it from?
This is from 2009.
And was it the first record that you bought, or one of the first?
Yeah, it was definitely one of the first records I bought. I think I bought 40 dubstep records at one time, just when I I'm gonna get a lot of them. So I hope this is the right side.
Is it from I know that dubstep primarily originated in the UK. Is this a UK record?
Yeah, this is a UK record from Cryptic Minds, is from UK and also ran their own label. Yeah.
Did you ever get to play that kind of stuff out?
Yeah. I played as a DJ called Server, and also released music under that name actually. Yeah. And played a lot of gigs, played many times on Culture Box actually when I was 16, 17, and on Stinger many times, and there was so many of these bass parties. But it was the vibe was definitely not the vibe that I would be into anymore. It was very only dudes and a lot of weed being smoked everywhere, and I don't know. It was definitely, I don't know. At the time, I thought it was super cool, and I really enjoyed it. Just going to Copenhagen and going to these kind of parties. Yeah.
All right. So your journey started with dubstep, and this is UK from when? Do you know?
From 2009.
All right. Let's listen to it.
Cryptic Minds. I hope this is the right side.
No,
Maybe it's not even playing.
Anton.
It should be this.
Okay, so now we're gonna listen to this, and you can go out, have a cigarette, or sit here and enjoy the music. Up to you.
Yeah. We're not gonna hear the whole track, I think.
No. But here it is.
Listen to that. Couldn't you make a song written by a machine sound so beautiful?
was it.
Yeah, I think the best part is as soon as we like standing and listening to music, that we are just like talking so much to each other. Always when me and Søren are like listening to music, showing each other music.
And thanks for showing that. That's different from what I expected it to be.
Yeah.
I had a really short dubstep career. I also tried to produce dubstep, and I was really bad at it. There was a producer in Aalborg called Thomas Bidsted, and I remember sending him one of my compositions, and when I hear it now, it's terrible. It's really, really bad. Because I couldn't get the sound of this. I didn't get the sound of anything, basically. Neither the drums, nor the synths, nor the bass, anything. But what I remember most about the dubstep time was the wah 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 sound. I don't know if you remember the wah 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 wah. And this didn't really have that. It reminds me more of like I told you when we were listening of, I don't know, like a soundtrack to Matrix or something.
Yeah.
Like it has really this trip hop.
Yeah.
If you remember Portishead or Massive Attack and these groups, it has the same kind of like
soundtrack sound, kind of like
Yeah,
a horror
really.
movie or something like that.
But
as
also,
well.
like I think a lot of those like productions from Massive Attack, for example,
Yeah.
these are obviously only the biggest one. There's a whole forest of great artists that I don't know the name of because I'm not that much into dubstep, but or trip hop. But it had that kind of like the same kind of vibe. Like this really could be like from the Matrix soundtrack. I think.
Or from some, I don't know, some dark sci-fi movie or something like that. And that's definitely also like the visual vibe these kind of labels had, and they were also, all of them were also like using like all of these like sound like vocal tracks from different mysterious or horror movies or stuff, sci-fi movies especially. But that was like where I started, and the thing about like the dubstep thing, and it's kind of growing again now, but I think that like we started in the right tempo.
What do you mean?
Like it started in like dubstep is usually in 140 BPM, and
But a half tempo.
But
right?
a half
So
tempo,
that means
yeah.
that the kick is half of that. So 140 would be at 70 BPM, and then the rest of the percussion is at 140. So double tempo. So meaning that you get a weird kind of vibe that some of it is really slow and like right.
But there's still a lot of dubstep tracks that was like 4/4. But this just didn't have like a clap or a snare on the 2 and 4 note.
So before dubstep, so that's I teased in the beginning that there was a bit of say musical history lesson in this, and even though I haven't listened to a lot of dubstep, I've listened to a lot of UK garage or speed garage. Speed garage is basically like 4/4, meaning you have the kick on every beat, like tak 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 tak, whereas the garage is dun. And a lot of the stuff I listen to is from the late 90s, early millennia, and it has that precursor to dubstep in the sound, like the wah 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 that I talked about before, that everybody remembers from Skrillex and so on. Kind of like was in the front in the dubstep sound. So when did dubstep origin? Is it like around the millennia-ish, or was it
like
as a defined genre?
5, 6, 7. Like it started with all of this UK garage and or two-step, and then it evolved into like this half step. And
what is a half step? Because two-step is instead of like
the half step is just like when it's 1 and 3. It's just when it's 1 and 3.
Okay.
That is the notes that are like the rhythmic notes that are like emphasized on.
And so it died out quite fast again, or what? Dubstep. I don't really
think
know.
for me it died out at 2011-12.
But that's also when it caught on in the mainstream sound. Now I mention
but the
Skrillex
thing
a lot
is
of time because that's my only reference. But
yeah,
and
I can only speak for myself.
Bro
but
step.
I definitely think that for also like both especially the UK scene, but also here in the Danish scene, where a lot of people who were all like playing dubstep and only making dubstep and drum and bass, all of a sudden we were just all of us going to techno parties, and was all of a sudden like for me it was I only when I heard some techno before, I was like, this is just the same beat for 8 minutes and nothing is happening at all. And
in techno.
Yeah. And I was very much...
Look at you now.
Yeah, and I was also very much like thinking that... I think it was also because dub techno at the time was very like simple and still, in
What
my
do you mean
opinion,
by
super boring.
dub techno?
It's techno where there's very often there's like these jazzy kind of house chords, but then they have a lot of reverb on them. So and then these house chords, they're just like playing slowly throughout the whole tracks and not like evolving, but it's very static. And that was also like here in Copenhagen we had like Echo Chord, which was also run by Kenneth, who ran Culture Box. And that was like the sound we had in Copenhagen. The techno parties we had in Copenhagen were mainly like dub techno parties until 2010-11, I think, where it's like all of a sudden all of this like Berghain techno came, and then also a lot of all of these UK bass music artists started making techno. And that's also like the next tracks I'm gonna show is also like from a UK artist that is like originally bass music.
So okay, so dubstep, dub techno, do they have any similarities? Well, I know that we're going into the dub terminology and what is dub.
I think like it's mainly about these chords, like these where a lot of dub techno also has this kind of reggae chords playing, and has this kind of vibe. But I've never been much into it, so I'm not gonna be like say I'm an expert on especially dub techno. But it was just to say that at the time there was mainly dub techno.
And
parties.
what time is that in Copenhagen?
Like 2006, 7, 8 till 10, I would say. It was mainly dub techno, and there was a lot of parties I didn't know anything about. And before that, there was so many proper raves, but like there was like these few years in the mid 2000s where all music was mainly like this thing we call techno today wasn't really like all of this, especially this Berlin techno that like everybody who is into techno maybe knows, like Ben Klock or Marcel Dettmann, and this sound wasn't really there yet at that time.
So going from dubstep and playing Culture Box at age 16, 17, moving on to techno, how did that come about?
I think it started when we were going out in 2012, and we went to Culture Box to hear one of my favorite artists called Luke Slater play. And he was and at the same time Northern Structures, who's a Danish group, which one part is Controls, was also playing, and they played a completely nutty live set. But it was the first time I went to these kind of parties, and was just like, it was a completely different vibe for me. Like everybody was just super nice, super welcoming. Who's to say why they were like that? But it was definitely like, especially from what I was used to, where it was just like everybody was keeping to themselves. And
coming from Stengade.
Yeah.
The dub.
Then it was like this, like everybody just wanted to know each other, and everybody, like, I met so many friends I have today. I met like at that specific time. So yeah, we went out and heard that, and then I was just afterwards like, this is the music I've been looking for in my whole life, and like this is what I want to make. This is. But at that time, all techno was in 130 BPM, and we were just making techno in 130 BPM, me and my friends, and wasn't.
Which is for just
beats
for
per
facts,
minute.
It's faster than what was playing at the time. You won't believe it, but back then, like the Berlin techno was maybe even sometimes 122, 124, like really
very slow.
Slow.
Yeah.
Techno, but they called it techno because of the vibe or the atmosphere in it, and I agree, but very different from what you would hear today when you go out at the
especially in Copenhagen,
for example, go there for the weekend, you hear something completely different.
Yeah.
Okay, so you Luke Slater was playing at the Culture Box. You met a lot of nice people. This is it. No more dubstep.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I don't know, like.
Fuck that.
Yeah, it was just like over, and I think it was just like unanimous, like between countries, that like there was still some people trying, and there are still some good bass music parties now, also here in Copenhagen, just not so many.
And what do you mean by bass music?
Like where it can both be like drum and bass and dubstep and stuff like that. Like music with a lot of bass.
Yeah.
And you could think there is a lot of bass in techno or like other electronic, but I always get like when I then go out and then hear this music again, I'm like, okay, this is bass music because there is so much sub in this music.
So what did you bring for the next piece?
Then the next piece.
I guess something that's related to the story you just told.
Yes, it kind of is. Like, I bought a Lux Slater record as well, but this is by a British artist called Blavan. I hope this is the right side.
You can use these ones.
Yeah, maybe I should do that.
And year, label.
This is from
like
2012, from a record label called Black Sun Records. And Blavan is pretty interesting and one of me and probably also many people's very, very big inspiration. He was like making bass music, but he was making bass music. Yeah, that's the right sign. But then started making techno, but it didn't really sound like the techno everybody else was making. It was a lot more like organic, and it has like this, especially this track I'm gonna show us, has like this very like woody sound. Sounds like the kick sounds like everybody's just spamming on trees or something like that. I don't know. And Blavan, he played at I think it was a distortion party like in 2012 or 13, and he played 140 BPM, and to me that's where this especially here in Copenhagen everybody plays super fast. I play like 145 BPM usually when I play out, and he played 140 BPM and everybody was there and everybody was just like, this is insane. And for me, I had never heard like techno being played this fast, and afterwards we were just like, this is the time we're gonna make techno in. So yeah.
And you did, because I watched I saw the file names of your external hard drive, and Morten has music back from called Morten Techno 2011, Morten Techno 2012. So you surely did. So let's listen to it, and welcome to all you newcomers. So now we're just gonna listen to a few minutes of the track, and you can stay and listen to it, or you can go out smoke a cigarette. It's up to you. But here it is, Blavan.
Called Scarborough Harbor, I think.
From Black Sun Records, Blavan. Here it is. Okay, so Blauan from 2012. It has that. So I like techno just as much as the next dancer, but I usually prefer something else. But it has that, I don't know, more of a techno sound than what I encountered in the early days, like you mentioned, Ben Clock before on the backhand techno. So what gives it that vibe, you think?
I think like this sound, like there came quite a lot of artists, and including myself, when I was starting making techno, I was all just especially doing all of these vocal samples, where you can't really hear what, like no idea what is being said, and it doesn't really matter. It has like this kind of vibe, but I don't know, like. Yeah, I just think it's kind of there's a lot of distortion on it, and it's like, it just have like this kind of special.
It's gritty.
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, it sounds clean, and.
As you said, it sounds like someone is running around in the woods and banging on trees with stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Where like
I tried to listen to it, but I guess I love the analogy.
But yeah, I just think, especially techno at the same time, a lot of other techno artists was like a bit more clean and a bit more clubby, like had a bit more of like this club sound where I don't know. This sounds like it sounds like from a swamp or something. I don't know.
So what happened from there, from 2012 and after your dubstep era, and you listened to Lux Slater and met a lot of nice people at nice parties who really.
Then I just kept on partying, I guess.
You know the feeling.
Then we just started making this super fast techno, and it became, especially some of the Danish artists became super big names, like internationally, like Shake and Repro and the Euromantic team. And
what about you? Where did you go from there, from Blauan?
From Blauan? But then I started just looking so much more into all of this, like especially all of this old techno from like the late 90s, names like Surgeon or Regis, and especially old Lux Slater tracks or Jeff Mills, like all of these old things.
Which is UK and US stuff.
Yeah.
Not the only place they made techno, mind you. I mean, they made techno like everywhere. You all know the story of the Detroit techno and so on, but Germany had a huge techno scene, Sven Fed, Hard House, IQ, all this. Kind of like before they parted ways genre-wise, and they were still kind of together.
But there was still like, all of a sudden I found all of these like
Holland, Belgium, like all Spain, like so many. They made techno everywhere. No, because it's only been UK stuff, so we wanted like. I love music history.
Yeah. Whenever we talk about music, we always just like talking to like none of us can get to say anything.
Okay, so what happened from there, from Blauan in 2012?
But
and
then I found like all of this like super fast techno from like, especially from 2001 to 2003, which is super funny because you and me, we really bonded like almost a year ago. We really bonded over like, I was like, what the fuck is this this house you're playing, this which was progressive house you were playing. I was like, progressive house, that's shit music. I've always thought that was like the worst music ever. And I was like, oh, especially progressive house from 2001 to 2003. And all music from that period for some reason was just like amazing. And then there was some gap years where there wasn't much good music. But yeah, I especially looked for many of these fast and very hard records. And
what heartbreakers?
Hard records,
not
heartbreakers.
I was like,
it's not like it broke my heart. Some of them literally did. And actually, the next track I'm gonna want to show is one of the tracks that almost broke my heart many times. Because when I I'm DJing and I've always been DJing, but I get very, very obsessed if I hear a track in a mix or if I hear DJ play a track. I'm like, I need to know what this track is, and I've always had I always have something I'm looking for. Always need to have something I'm looking for, and like this track I want to show is like, I heard it in a mix, like I don't know, almost 10 years ago I think, and it was just like, this sounds like this label or this label or this label. So what I did was just like go through like hundreds of records and Discogs and just be like, oh, it's gotta be the next one. It's gotta be the next one. I'm gonna find it soon. And I didn't find it. And then all of a sudden there came a new mix with a track list. And I was like, I was so happy that I was finally found it. And then I was in Berlin 2 weeks ago, and I went to Berlin and went to record shops. Like now I'm gonna buy this record. I'm gonna find it, ask about it. And I couldn't find it anywhere, and then I went into Discogs.
What are you asking for? Like, it sounds like...
Oh, like I showed like the record on my mobile phone or something like that.
Oh, you found it already? Okay.
Yeah. And then I found it on Discogs. I had found it because I found that mix. But I was looking for it on Discogs, and then I saw, it's right here in Copenhagen in Proton Records. So last Friday, I finally bought the record. And like Anders from Proton, he was just like, we had that. It's been here for 10 months or something like that. Jesus Christ. But
so what is it?
Yeah, it's a record by a guy called Paul Britsnitz, I think it's called. It's a very, very hard name. And when I was in Berlin, I was like trying to say his name. There was like this German guy. It's called Britsnitz. And I was like, okay, I can't say this. But it's like BRTSC. HITSCH.
The label is called Frisbee, if you want to look it up.
Frisbee Records.
Yeah. And that's some Millennia stuff, because I have a record from that label as well, but that's some tech housey stuff.
Yeah.
Fast tech house though, but still.
And I don't know if this is super typical for a lot of the music I play, and yet it's still.
This is going to be your last track, because I have the closing track.
Yes.
As a benefit of being the host.
This is my the last track.
Just want to add a comment to the heartbreak stuff. So I'm also I'm a journalist also by trade. I do, and in 17 or 18 I wrote an article about the Copenhagen techno music, and you mentioned the heartbreak, which I misheard. You were saying, I don't remember you were saying hard stuff or something. I remember writing an article with the headliner saying Copenhagen. I interviewed Courtesy for the article, and asking about the new Copenhagen techno scene and what it and all that, trying to portray it. And she said that it sounds like Broken Hearts.
Yeah.
So that ended up being the headline for the article. It's on Heartbeats. I think it's offline now because they changed CMS systems. Fuck them. But Copenhagen techno sounded like Broken Hearts. Yeah. Okay, anyway. So what year is this from? Is it the UK stuff also, or is it where?
No, it's German.
German.
It's German from Berlin. I forgot. It's from 1998. Yeah.
All right. So we're moving some 14 years back from Blavan, which was 2012.
And I think this is just like this track has been my biggest obsession, I think, and it's a super, super simple track, and it's called Clave. And it's very, very obvious why it's called Clave when you hear the track. Yeah.
know that you played this last week. Out.
Yeah, I played it. I was playing at den anden side last. What was Friday? Yeah, last Friday.
And
I
did
really look forward
it rock the floor?
Yeah, it was insane.
Same as here.
Yeah, it already rocked the floor.
Nice track. And I heard the claves. I think everybody heard the claves.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not that opfindsomme.
No. Imagine if I just have searched for what was in the track when I was looking for it, but you
get a lot of hits on YouTube though. Good luck with that. Okay, so Frisbee Records, Paul Britsnitz, what's the track?
Yes.
We're gonna link it on YouTube also, so if you really dig this stuff, you can find it there. All right, Morten, unfortunately we're running out of time. These hours always pass fast, and thank you for. I know that you have even more records. I told you also to just bring a bunch and then see what you wanted to play. I also like music. Surprise. And now I'm gonna talk with take over here and talk a little bit about house music, because that's my main thing. So house music is obviously a lot of stuff, and I have 3 records here, and I kind of haven't really decided what I want to share with you. I also collect records. I have, I don't know, 1,500 records at home. There's 20 shipments coming this month also. All progressive house, as you mentioned before, so a bit far from techno. And I think just to tie it all together with what you just... they're all so good. So to tie it all together, I think so difficult. I think this one here, because so this is I really like. So I've been collecting what's called progressive house and tech house forever since I began, which is like 7 years ago, and it took me almost 5 years to convince people that tech house is a cool thing, because what you normally think about when you talk about tech house is like Ibiza, slow, commercial, EDM-driven music, and that's not tech house. Tech house came from it's you take techno and house and you sort of like put them together and you get tech house. And really, it's that simple. It means techno house, and I could talk for hours about tech house or progressive house. But this record here is from 2000, from Millennia, and it came out at a time where the European techno, such as what you just played from Frisbee Records, had been peaking for a couple of years, I think, and it's gotten more and more fast and more techno-ish and more to the core of that and more defined as a genre, whereas in the early 90s you had all genres. You had tech house, you have Goa trains, you have progressive trains, you had techno, but they all kind of like was one big thing, and you had tracks which had elements from all of them. And the later you get in the 90s, the more they sort of start to part ways. And European techno had gotten faster and faster, interestingly enough, because then it got slower, as we talked about earlier in the show, with the Berghain techno, where it was like 120 something, and then some 10-15 years later it all speeded up again to the Copenhagen scene, which you could go into in 2018 you go to a record shop in the States and you could find like Detroit techno, Chicago house, Copenhagen techno. Like it was really a thing, but it had been fast before as well. And at that particular time there was a sort of like counter wave in house music where it took the elements from some elements at least from trance music and the so-called progressive music. What is progressive music anyway? It's changing like throughout the track. You had progressive rock, especially. I think that's where it originated in the 70s or 80s, where you would have like a sort of like a main melody, a main theme, and you would stick to that, but the elements around it, being the drums or the bass or the synths when they came on, would change basically. So progressive meaning changing. And it also started to be its own thing around that time when this record is from. So 2000, this is from the United States. It's by an artist called Halo Varga. or Halo Vegas is also one of his many aliases. Many artists from that period has many different aliases, so they could publish both techno, trance, house, whatever, and be fine with and not tied it to the same name. And this is by Halo Varga. It was an anthem, basically. It's called Future. And this guy collaborated with another favorite record label of mine called Siesta. And as I told Jens before, who's down here, Siesta is tech house. It's kind of like Mescaline house in a way. It's really trippy, weird stuff, and it has no breaks almost. It's just continuous. So borrowing some of the elements from techno, for example, whereas EDM music in the tech house that has a lot of breakdowns, build-ups, like all the obvious stuff to get you hands in the air. Woo! This doesn't. This is more laid back, unobvious in a way. So Halo Varga from I think this label, this record is from Hooch Tunes. Also talked about that label in another show. And anyway, Halo, check it out. He's super, super good. And find a record and find the label that it was released on. See if you like some of the other stuff as well. It's Siesta especially. Anyway, so this being the closing words, this is Halo Varga Future, big anthem. I think this has like 400,000 views on YouTube or something, so it's no secret. But it came at a time where the Copenhagen, not the Copenhagen techno, where the European techno had really just escalated into this like faster, more crazy, more manic sound, and this came on, I think that's it. What's the time? I don't think we have any more time. No. All right. So
so we're not gonna hear it.
We're gonna hear it. Sorry,
Cool.
next artist. We're gonna give it 5 minutes. Sorry. So Halo Varga, Future, and thank you all for coming. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day, nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to Morten.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to Morten for showing up and sharing your stories. Really interesting. I wanted to do a whole show about that, even more than this, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah,
we'll do it another time.
I could keep on showing track.
Thank you, Morten, for coming. Give Morten a hand.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Making an enemy
thing to the viewers out there about the US tech house is that it has a lot of American elements, meaning like elements from jazz music, and you hear saxophone samples, you hear all that sort of stuff that you really connect with the American jazz scene as well. So they use that and sample that a lot also in the American side of early tech house. Here it is, Halo Vaga Future.
Making an enemy of our future.